Hello and welcome to the Any Grief Goes podcast. Today I have got James with me. Hi, James.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. And thank you for coming on and being a guest. It's really nice to have you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Do you want to introduce yourself for the people that are watching and listening?
Yes, of course. My name is James. I'm James Mace. I am a 41-year-old male, and I live in Essex, just in between sort of like Colchester and Ipswich. I live at home with my wife and my dog, and I work for an organisation who provides support for people around their mental health and their general wellness. And I'm also, I guess, an adult orphan because I've lost both my parents. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, really. That's without going too deep into me and my background, but that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much. So this podcast is about grief, and there's lots of different types of grief, but today we're going to be focusing on the kind of bereavement side. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the losses you've experienced?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, apart from like elderly grandparents when I was younger, I never really experienced any grief until I got to the age of 29. Very sadly, my mum, she was diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer. She had bowel cancer, and she was poorly for maybe 6 months of the year, then kind of deteriorated towards the end of the year. And she was in hospital, and then she was out of hospital. She was back home. We got to all have Christmas together, which was lovely. But then she passed away at home in the January of 2013. And that was just, yeah, that was really tough on me. I would say I was extremely immature, an extremely immature 29-year-old. And yeah, that really, it really woke me up, gave me like a slap around the face, and introduced me to adulting and the real world and what life is about. And I thought, wow, this is really tough because it's my mum. Like, I love my mum. I was a mummy's boy. I still call myself a mummy's boy. I was always a mummy's boy. I'm the youngest of three children, and yeah, it broke me. It broke me just trying to figure out what life would be like without my mum being there, because all of the plans that you make in life, you know, meeting a partner, getting married, buying a home, possibly having children, whatever those plans look like, I feel like a lot of people's futures are sort of mapped out to them when they're a child. And I know for a fact my mum used to talk about me having children quite often, because my elder sister has two children, and my older brother has two children as well, four boys. And my mum always used to say, "You've got to give me a granddaughter, James, when you're giving me a granddaughter." And I'd be like, "Mum, I've got to get a girlfriend first. Like, slow down, slow down." But she often joked about it. But that's something that stayed with me, because I remember going to one of her appointments at the hospital to discuss her diagnosis, and I remember leaving the hospital, and my dad was really deflated. I was deflated, just thinking, wow, like, we need to get used to the fact that she's not going to be around for much longer. And I remember my mum turning around saying, "I'm not going anywhere yet, boy, not until you've given me that granddaughter, not until you've given me that little granddaughter." So that stays with me quite a lot. And now to the point where I think, like, I don't have any children. Me and my wife, we don't have children. Um, we thought we was going to have children when we first got together. I've always wanted children ever since my first nephew was born 25 years ago. I thought, right, I want to be a dad. Like, this is amazing. And my wife thought the same. But then, I don't know, I think people often change. The way we live, we sort of go in cycles. And we now think that maybe having children's not the best idea for us, for whatever reason, without getting into that too much. But I just couldn't imagine having a child and then not sharing that with my mum, like being like, "Mum, here's your granddaughter, like, finally, here it is." Here she is. So when the start of 2013 was a really rough year. It really affected me. It really knocked me for six, but it knocked my dad for six, like big time. I've never seen him like that in all of my years. To see my dad actually crying, he didn't talk about how he was feeling in normal life, and my granddad was the same. My dad's dad was the same. Let alone cry, let alone open up, let alone share their feelings. And just to see my dad cry, I thought, wow, like this is big for dad to be upset and crying. Like he must be really, really hurting inside and struggling. So I need to be there for him, and I need to get a grip. And my sister's upset, my brother's upset, my auntie's up, everyone's upset losing my mum. She was like the figurehead of the family. So I would say that I didn't know how to grieve, and I didn't really grieve at the start. And I took my time. I really took my time because I didn't know what I was doing. Like I say, I felt immature. My self-awareness wasn't very good. I didn't know what I needed to feel better. So I just turned to alcohol, and I would drink a hell of a lot of alcohol. And my dad was a drinker anyway. He drank a lot of whiskey. So me and my dad would sit and drink whiskey and rum, and that's just how we done it. That was our way of coping, I guess, a coping mechanism. As unhelpful as that may be to some people, others see it as a great thing. But at that time, that's what I was using to just try to numb the pain a little bit, because it
Yeah.
was, yeah, like I said, a tough time. I felt really lost. I was going down a little bit of a black hole there, because I had people around me to support me, but I felt, well, you don't know how I feel, so I need to find someone that's lost their mum. And I was looking around, and I remember reaching out to a fella in Australia who I met when I was traveling years ago, and I knew that he'd lost his dad. I remember just sending him a message like, "My mum's dead. Like, how have you coped since?" And he was like, "Mate, like, I can't help you. I can't help you. Like, this sucks for you, and you've just got to ride it out and grieve and let it, go through the motions." And to me, I thought, oh, that's not good advice at all. Like, there's got to be something to make me feel better. And I remember going to a grief counsellor. No, it was just a general counsellor. But that was too soon for me. It was too soon for me to start discussing the things they wanted me to talk about. And I thought, no, counselling is not for me. So, like I say, I was just turning to drink, and sometimes drink and drugs go hand in hand, and I was taking drugs, I was drinking on weeknights, and I was just getting in a bit of a state where I wasn't talking, and the world felt really heavy all of the time. And then to kind of to add to that grief and dismay and pain, 6 months in the same year, 6 months after my mum passed away, my nephew died. My 10-year-old nephew Jasper. He very sadly died of a brain aneurysm. And just at that point, I thought, what have I done? What have me and my family done that we need to be punished for our loved ones to be taken away? Like, I felt like I had a good life. We were all happy. We met up as families. We'd have family events, barbecues, holidays, things like that, and it was great. And then, like I say, mum going, she was the figurehead of the family, was really, really tough. But Jasper, at the age of 10, I still don't really understand it today. I couldn't really make peace with it. At that point, I thought, well, my mum was 60. She'd had a life. She had 3 children. She had 4 grandchildren and husband, and she'd go on holiday. She loved her job. She loved her family. She'd had a life. But Jasper was 10 years old, and I just thought, that's so unfair for him. There's so much he didn't get to experience. And that was just really, really hard to just to process. And I feel like it really did shake up the family. Like, our family dynamics just got lost. They were really fractured. We wasn't that close-knit family anymore. Whereas, you know, mum would ring us all up and be like, right, this date at this time, we're all meeting for dinner, be at mine at this time, and everyone would go, and that's how it would be. And then that was gone. That didn't happen anymore, and it was more difficult to get us all together and all be around each other. And particularly, I remember Christmas that year, my sister put on Christmas to try and keep everyone together, but it was awful. It was just a really, really awful Christmas because the people that we love the most are not there. There's 2 empty seats at this massive table, and yeah, it was a tough year, a really, really tough year, and it just took me about 2 years after to get help. I didn't talk for 2 years. I kept it all in. I didn't want to talk when I was with my friends. I just wanted to drink, do drugs, have fun, party. I didn't want to talk about real life because real life was too tough to talk about. So I didn't. I didn't talk about it. I mean, if anyone did try to bring it up, I'll be like, no, I'm fine. Let's go and have another drink. And I would just play it down because I wasn't ready. Because, you know, over 10 years on, I can sit and have this conversation with you and share my stories and my grief, and I can do that. I'm in a much better place. But back then, I wasn't ready to face real life, so it was easier not to talk about it. Until one day, I just had a complete meltdown, complete breakdown. I was at work and I thought, I just can't cope. Can't cope anymore. I've got no joy in life. I don't particularly, if I'm honest, I don't really want to live anymore. I don't want to be around. There's nothing that can bring me joy. And yeah, I had a breakdown at work, ended up calling up my GP and said, look, I don't want to live anymore. Can I have some help, please? And that was the first time I asked for help and reached out to get help. And the doctor was really kind and put me in contact with a grief counsellor, gave me advice on not drinking, gave me advice on not taking drugs, put me on medication herself. And then I started to talk and share my story, and the grief counsellor for me was really beneficial at that time. Although, you know, previously 2 years, I couldn't think of anything worse. Fast forward, it was the right time for me. And I started to talk and open up, and it made me appreciate life a lot more, made me be just a little bit more understanding, and made me realize that I was going through it on my own. I didn't need to, because all of my family were grieving. So if I wanted to go home and call up my sister and say, sis, I'm really missing mum and I'm really missing Jasper. And I know mum was your mum as well, and also your best friend, and Jasper was your youngest son, but I'm missing them as well, and I'd like to talk about them. I I couldn't do it back then. I couldn't do it. It took me to have those conversations, to then start talking to family, because I always thought that me talking about them would upset them. But it was the fact that they're dead, that they've died and no longer here. That was the upsetting thing. We're all upset. So me talking about them wasn't necessarily going to upset them all. It was a case of, well, we're all grieving. So me talking about them is not going to be upsetting people. And if someone did get upset, it's because they love them and they care and they miss them. So me having that journey in my life, and processing that information, and you know, I still speak to a counsellor now, and sometimes the grief comes up, and not all the time. I now speak to my therapist about the current things that are going on, but also if it was an anniversary of their death or their birthday, I might be having a tough time that week. I would bring it up and say, yeah, I'm really missing my mum this week, and have those conversations. So yeah, that was 2013, which was a heavy year, and then I started
Yeah.
getting that support, yeah, a few years after. And but if I'm honest, since 2013, every year's been tough.
Mm-hmm.
Every year's been tough because this grief, it doesn't leave. It doesn't leave me, and I don't think it ever will. And in a way, as weird as it sounds, I don't want it to leave, because if it leaves, it means I've forgotten them, and I never want to forget them ever.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to forget their memory. I've got a photograph of my mum sat just there. I've got another one of my nephews sat up there. Like I need to look at their photos every day, every single day. And I'm not quite sure why that is, because sometimes it gives me comfort. Other times I'll look at it and think, oh, I've got to put that photo away. That's depressing me because I'm missing them so much. I don't want to look at that photo today. So it just kind of depends on how I'm feeling in that moment, that day, that week, that month. But I'm fully aware that, you know, there's going to be anniversaries of the day they passed. There's going to be their birthday. There's going to be Christmas, for example. You know, Christmas has been awful, like ever since. It's been really tough. When I met my now wife and I met her family, it was just really refreshing to be away from my family, which it makes me sad saying that out loud, you know. But it was nice to be around a different family, a different loving family, and they accepted me. And it wasn't a case of meeting up with everyone and being like, well, cheers everyone, Merry Christmas, this one's for you, Mum, raising a drink for Mum, we'll do another cheers for Jasper. And straight away that would kind of bring me down and take the shine off Christmas. So it was nicer and easier for me to just kind of be with them and be like, oh, actually, I'm quite enjoying Christmas again. It's been many years since I've celebrated Christmas because I've always just been really drunk senseless, and I drink on Christmas Eve and I drink on Christmas Day and I drink on Boxing Day, just trying to get through that time, trying to get through Christmas, trying to get through the holidays. And it's always been a tough time. Whereas now it's more enjoyable, and I do certain things, and I will still think of them, and maybe I'll go for a walk. And when I'm on a walk, I might
Mhm.
talk to my mum or I might talk to Jasper, and I'm always talking to the robins in the garden, you know, because
Mhm.
I always think, you know, you see these little signs that, oh, that's a loved one's close, that's a loved one that's passed on, coming back to say hello. And whatever you may interpret that as, it's entirely up to you. But sometimes I see that as, I hope that is my mum. I hope that is Jasper. I really do. In this moment, coming to visit me in another form. It's their spirit, and they're just coming to say hello, and you know, that just gives me a bit of comfort. So
Mm.
I'm really conscious that I'm talking non-stop. So I apologise that I'm just talking non-stop. So if you want to come in at any point, please go for it. I'm going to have a sip of my drink.
You don't need to apologise. It's a really powerful story. It's an incredibly tough thing to have that much loss in a year. And it does strike me how, family dynamics do change a lot, don't they? And I was I was wondering if I could ask you about the gender of it, because sometimes you were saying you don't want to burden people. So, sometimes you're saying, well, you had to be strong, and the impact of seeing your father actually cry. Is there something, do you feel, about being a man that impacted how you were coping initially?
Definitely, without a doubt. Without a doubt. There is so much stigma still there preventing men, anyone who identifies as a man, from just speaking out about how they actually feel. And
Mm.
there's still a lot of education to be had, because people don't really know about mental health. People don't really understand when someone might be struggling. They don't really know about grief unless they've been through it themselves. And at that time, I remember thinking, well, I can't talk about how I'm feeling because I haven't been brought up that way. Like as a child, my parents
Mm.
would always say to me, well, big boys don't cry, James. Stop crying.
Mm.
Or if you've got nothing nice to say, then just don't say anything at all. And I think I took that with me. I took that into later life because I thought, well, the things that I've got to say are not very nice. I'm talking about how depressed I am, how I'm crying myself to sleep every night, how I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to clean myself, I don't want to shower, I'm forgetting to eat. But then again, at the same time, I would think of myself at work. And again, being a burden at work, I wanted to be professional at work. I wanted to prove to everyone that I was strong, that I could do my
Mhm.
job and I could do my job well. And I didn't want to be overlooked for any form of progression or promotion. So I felt like I had to be the strong person. I had to be the strong one. and show to everyone that I was doing okay and doing well, because I feel like there's still a lot of stigma there, thinking, well, that's showing weakness. Any kind of vulnerability, that's weakness. If I'm going to show people that I'm vulnerable, then I'm going to show people that I'm weak and I can't do my job and I'm not coping and I'm not going to be considered for any form of promotion. And going back to, my dad, he was the one that was upset at that time. And I thought, well, I don't want to get him more upset. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to upset my brother. I don't want to make anyone cry. So I need to appear like I've got it together. I need to appear like I can cope and that it's okay and that we're all going to be okay and this will pass. This tough time will pass. This loss will affect us now, but it will ease and it will pass. And I think a lot of that has been really embedded into us, because I felt ashamed. I felt that shame of how I was feeling. I would often say to myself, you're letting them down. You're letting mum down. You're letting Jasp down just because you can't get out of bed. You're depressed. You're letting them down. So get it together. Get yourself together. Stop crying. Stop being anxious. Stop being worried about leaving the house. Like, you've got to stop all them things. You don't need to get professional help, because my idea of professional help was what I'd seen, what I'd read in comic books, what I'd seen in Batman and stuff like that. I thought, if I tell anyone that I'm anxious to open my front door and I'm nervous to be around people and I'm really depressed and I can't sleep and I'm drinking all the time, I thought, if I tell anyone, then I'm going to get taken to a mental asylum. I'm going to get a knock at my door. There are going to be men in white coats saying, right, you're coming with me. And I'd be put in a straitjacket. I would be put in the back of their van. They would take me to the mental asylum. I'd be locked in a padded cell and they would be injecting me with like a luminous bright pink injections or bright a luminous green liquid to treat me, and that's kind of how I thought it would be. So that was another reason that was holding me back. That was another obstacle for me to try and conquer and try and get out of my head. So yeah, I did feel that pressure, feeling like I would be letting people down, not just mum and Jasper, but I felt like I would be letting the rest of my family down, particularly my sister, because she was experiencing exactly the same as me, and so as was my brother. We'd all lost our mum. We'd all lost this wonderful lady that had carried us all inside her for 9 months, and then nurtured us and brought us into the world and taught us right from wrong and loved us unconditionally. She really her family were the most important thing to her, and there was nothing more important than her family. And we all felt that love. But my sister was missing that. She had a closer relationship, being the eldest of 3, and also being a girl as well. They were very close. Once my sister had children as well, they become even closer. They were doing stuff all the time. So again, just a big loss. And I think subconsciously, I was beating myself up thinking, well, my grief is not as hard as my sister's grief. I'm not grieving as much as she is. And then to add losing her son into that, our world was already broken. Our world was already torn apart. And then have my sister's 10-year-old child be taken away once again, that was just, it blew our minds. And at that point, I thought, once again, I can't cry. I can't be that person. I've got to be strong, because my sister is in pieces. I thought I was in a bad way. Now my sister's in pieces. So I just need to be better. I felt like I was telling myself, I need to be stronger. I need to be better. I need to be that guy. I need to be that version of myself that everyone seems to like. Everyone seems to like James, the James that will come over with alcohol and cigarettes, and everyone likes that person. Come round, we'll sit in the garden, we'll open a bottle of wine or a crate of beer, we'll put some music on, we'll sit and smoke cigarettes, and we'll just drown our sorrows together. So that's the kind of mindset that I had at that time to try and push
And
through.
How did your mindset begin to shift, and did your coping mechanisms change?
Coping mechanisms did change over the years, over this 10-year period, and I think it has changed a little bit at a time. I wouldn't say there was one in particular thing that I had done or that I do, um, but the mindset just gradually changed. I saw the GP. I got put on antidepressants. I started seeing the grief counsellor, so that was a change. Just making that
Mm,
phone call to the GP, that was a change. That was a step. Speaking to the
okay.
counsellor, cutting down on alcohol, stop taking drugs, taking my antidepressants. That was another change. And then, you know, certain relationships that I was in, romantic relationships, friendships that I had, new friendships that I was making, talking to people, like-minded people like yourself, making those connections with people that get it, that people that may
Mm,
understand where I'm coming from. So little things like that helped like massively. Um, Also, kind of educating myself, learning more, doing more courses, qualifications, um, just keeping myself really busy and really occupied. And I would, whenever I was doing anything, I'll be like, right, yeah, mum will be proud of me here. Jasper will be looking at me to think, yes, I'm proud of my uncle. I'm proud of him now. So little snippets like that here and there. And I would say it's hard to pigeonhole people, to pigeonhole us as a nation, but we do have this reputation as binge drinkers, don't we? Binge drinking Britain.
mm,
And that's what I was. I was a binge drinker, and I'd be with my friends and it'd be like, right, how much can we drink tonight? A bunch of immature teenage boys drinking and seeing if we can outdo each other, and we'd be having laughs, we'd get in trouble, and that was just life. That was fun, and we kind of took that into our 20s as well, because we were able to go out and do more. We could go to London and go to a concert. We could go to a club up in Manchester. We could do those things, and that's what we done. And we used to do that so much, all of the time. And again, it was that binge drinking culture, and it took me up until last year to stop drinking. Just last year, at the age of 40, I thought, right, I'm not enjoying drinking as much anymore. I'm finding that when I do get drunk, my hangover is no longer just a physical hangover. I'm not just feeling dehydrated and I haven't got a stomach ache and a headache and I just need to drink more water. It's more than that now. And I wasn't, like I say, I wasn't self-aware back then. And over the years, I didn't notice it. And it was just a repetitive, vicious cycle, really. I was going round and round in circles, and I'd get drunk and then I'd be depressed for a week. Like my hangover would be a week, but it was my depression. It was my intrusive thoughts that I was having, this negative voice in my head, beating myself up, telling me I'm not good enough, telling me that I'm letting everyone down. And I just keep going around in circles. And I think, wow, I need a drink. I need to go to the pub. I definitely need a drink because these thoughts are driving me up the wall.
mm,
And yeah, it took me a long time to realize that alcohol is not actually my friend. Actually, alcohol is my enemy, and I should stay
mm.
away from it. And like I say, last year I turned 40 last year, and had lots of plans, went on a few trips. All of my friends wanted to celebrate with me and take me out, and I've done quite a lot. Went on a few weekends away, went away with the wife a few times, but I was drinking, but I wasn't drinking heavily. I would have a few and celebrate, and I was starting to reduce my alcohol intake. And a year ago, a friend of mine got married, and I thought, right, I'll get drunk on his stag, and I'll have a few drinks on his wedding. But after that, I'm done. So that was kind of like July last year, and I haven't drunk alcohol since. Yeah,
It's
I've
really
just
interesting
cut it out. Yeah, sorry, what was you saying?
because no, I think alcohol is really interesting because you can't blame people for finding a way out of just not wanting to feel all of the
Right,
hard stuff that life brings us, right? And
absolutely.
especially grief is hard and it's there, and we don't want to feel. Um, So it's so normal to want to do that and escape it. But I think what you realise is that it's actually, I don't know if you came to this conclusion, but you have to feel it in order to really fully be able to, I don't know, start
Absolutely,
to recover.
absolutely. No, I agree. I completely agree. And it took a friend of mine that I worked with, Dean, and he's just a great human being. And we started working when I was a barber. I was a barber before I was doing the job that I do now, and I was cutting hair. And he come and worked for us, and we was working together, and we got chatting, and like he's a great individual. He's a great human being, and he doesn't care what other people think, and he'll stand up for his rights. He's like a huge part of the LGBTQIA plus community, and he'll stand up for himself. And I just admired him. I admired everything he'd done, the way he dressed, the way he carried himself. And he was also a great barber as well, and a great bloke. And just whenever we worked together, I thought, you know what, he's a really good guy. And even down to the music he listened to, like he was educating me on music, like music I'd never heard of before. And like I owe so much to him. But one day we was having a conversation, and he'd lost his nephew. His nephew had died, same as me. So that instant connection. So we were getting on anyway, but once we had that connection, we become, well, we call each other brothers. I will say, you're my brother Dean, and he will say, you're my brother James, and we'll hug, and we'll talk, we'll do voice notes. And the same for him. He wasn't too much of an advocate of alcohol, but you've still got to deal with that anniversary every year. You've still got to deal with Christmases. You've still got to deal with, oh, it would have been Jasper's 21st birthday. I've got to have a drink. I've got to raise a glass to him, because that's just what you do. And sometimes that anniversary might be harder than the year before, because you might have been in a better place the year before, or you might not have been as aware of it. But you know, if you've read any books on trauma, which I'm sure you have, I can't remember the author, but it's The Body Keeps Score, and it
Yeah.
really does. Your body keeps track of your trauma. And
Yeah.
even if I haven't looked in my calendar, and I don't know that it's coming up to Jasper's anniversary when he passed away, my body will remember. I'll have sleepless nights, I'll have bad skin, I'll get headaches, even down to the point of my body odor smells different, which is crazy. But the human body is so complex and so well put together. And these anniversaries would come round, and I'd be like, oh right, yeah, it's Jasper, yeah, thinking of Jasper, yeah. But I've only got pictures of Jasper as a 10-year-old boy, but now he's a 21-year-old man, if he was alive. So again, those conflicting thoughts that I was having, and yeah, it'd be like, right, well, not only do I want to raise a glass to him, I want to get pissed. Basically, I want to get drunk, because this is hard, and I want to not feel the pain that I'm feeling, that I'm missing him so much. So I'm going to get really drunk. So that was a coping mechanism for me, but an unhelpful coping mechanism. And where I grew up, there was a lot of drugs, and you go to the pub and you get drunk, and someone would put drugs in your hand, and your head's gone, and you're drinking, and you'd end up sliding down that slippery negative slope. And like I say, that was a really difficult process that cycle was a really difficult one to break. So another helpful thing for me was, meeting my wife, meeting someone that could accept me the way she does, and very much like Dean. Dean's been there for me. We'll be friends for life, and we reach out to each other when it gets to anniversaries, particularly our nephew's anniversaries and birthdays. And my wife was the same. She accepted me for who I was, and she was great, really, really great, to support me in those moments. And she would allow me to do anything. If I wanted to go for a walk in a country park and let go of a balloon, to go up to Jasper, a balloon going up to heaven, to be like, happy birthday, Jasper. Here's a little gift from me to you. thinking of you, always think of you, that kind of thing. So, and she was great. She was really supportive. Like I say, she doesn't judge me. She never has judged me. Whereas people before, I feel they have judged me. And because they might not necessarily understand, they'll be like, well, grieving quite a long time now. Why are you still so sad? Maybe you need to go back on pills. Maybe you need to go back to the doctors. I'm like, well, I'm grieving. And I've been in jobs like that. I've been in jobs like that's why I left the barbershop that I was working in, because then, it was 3.5 years ago now. My dad passed away as well. I lost my dad to cancer. And at that time, the people in the barbershop where I worked were like, well, you're okay. Just go get some antidepressants. You're probably on antidepressants anyway, aren't you? And I went, I'm not depressed. I'm just grieving. Like, I've just lost my second, like my parents are now dead. Both my parents are dead. Okay. And it's been really tough since my mum died. Now my dad's died as well. I just need to step back for a bit. Like, give me a break. And I felt like they wasn't understanding at all. Um, and it made the situation a lot more difficult. And but then again, saying that, I felt like I was much better equipped to deal with my dad passing. And I might not have thought it at the time. I remember talking to my brother, and he was like, you've got this. You've got this. Like, everything you've done, everything you've been through, everything you've learned, this is going to be easier, and we're going to do this together. And we come together as a team, me, my brother, and my sister, and we supported each other, and we done everything we could, sorting all my dad's estate out, and just general stuff, general death admin, as I call it, sorting all that stuff to have my siblings by my side to support me made it a lot, not, I wouldn't say easier, but it just became a little bit. I can't think of another word for easier, but it become a little
More
bit easier.
tolerable,
Their
a bit more
support.
tolerable.
Tolerable, yeah, a little bit more tolerable, and a little bit less hard in those moments to have my siblings next to me. So again, it's just about, I think for me, just I'm learning all the time still. I think life is a journey, and every day is a school day. And whether you're learning about maths, or you're learning about religion, or you're learning about your child, or you're learning about your job, or you're learning about grief, and that is something that you're kind of learning all the time, every day. And some things you need to practice. Some things you can't just be told and then be like, okay, thanks for telling me, I've learned that now. Some things you need to put into practice. You need to perhaps have that downtime and meditate. Perhaps you need to do a bit of breath work, just like going to the gym. Yeah, you need to go to the gym because you need to keep working on yourself, or going out for runs, or getting out on the kayak or the paddleboard, to have that downtime for you. And so I'm always learning. I'm always learning. Every day I'm learning something new. And, doing what I do for a job as a living, I'm talking about well-being all the time, and I'm trying to educate people and help people. And when I'm doing that, I'm educating myself, and I'm reminding myself to do these positive things. And that alone is really beneficial and really powerful, to be able to do that in those moments.
So, what are the
So,
kind of things that you do to look after yourself while you're grieving?
well, going back to kind of what you said, and what I was saying about my friend Dean. Dean said to me, when my dad passed, you've got to grieve, James. You've got to grieve.
Yeah.
And I thought, what does that even mean? He goes, just sit with your feelings, sit with your emotions. And I've done that. I think I took 3 months out, 3 months. And I thought, I'm going to grieve my dad. I'm going to grieve my dad. I'm not going to do what I've done before and just drink and pretend like I'm okay. I'm going to grieve because I'm sad.
Mm.
And that's what I'd done. And I would grieve. I'd sit in the garden. I'd listen to music, and I would go on long walks out in nature, which is
Mm.
my go-to, my number one, is getting out in nature and experiencing that beauty, what the earth has to offer, what Mother Nature offers us, what life has to offer. Because sometimes when we get stuck in that rut, when we get caught up in our grief, and we can lose sight of what's happening in the world, because as much as there is some heavy and terrible things that go on in the world, there's also beauty, and you've got to find that beauty. You've got to go out, you've got to go for a walk, you've got to go down to a stream or a river or the ocean and experience nature and be around it. And that really helped me in my grieving process. I would do that. And, you know, like I say, Dean helped me. Charlotte, my wife, massively helped me. You know, she took on everything. She was working, she was paying all the bills. I wasn't working at all. And, you know, I'll forever be in her debt there. Because I needed that time. I needed that time to just rest and grieve and reset myself and then start again. And then I spoke to my now boss, who offered me the job that I now have. And it's a wonderful organisation where I get to talk about the things that I do to look after myself. So yeah, I do that. I journal. When I need to grieve, I'll grieve. I'll sit with it. I won't try and ignore it and feel like, oh, I feel like crap. It's because it's mum's birthday coming up. I'm just gonna shut myself away and ignore everyone. I won't. I'll actively engage in that and be like, right, it's mum's birthday. What am I going to do? I'm going to think about her. I'm going to perhaps, maybe if I feel like it on the day, I'll talk about her. And I'll share some stories with her sister, my auntie, and you know, I'll look after myself, and perhaps I'll go for a long walk. I do lots of breath work. I like to run. When I'm out running, I'm not thinking about anything else. It's kind of quiets down the noise in my brain. So yeah, there's a long list of things that I try to do to maintain my well-being, and that can even be as simple as eating fruit every day and trying to eat more healthily and having a nutritious breakfast and drink more water, and just tiny little things that I need to do to look after myself. Because if I don't, it'll all go to pot. It'll all go out the wind. The way it was, you know, 10 years ago, it would all go down to shutting myself away, eating takeaways, drinking alcohol, taking drugs until I become another statistic for men. You know, the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 is themselves, is suicide. So that could easily have been me, and I'm very aware of that as well. So I try to tap into gratitude as much as I can.
I just think all those things are awesome. I'm so glad that you've said that, because I really hope that people that are watching and listening will take on board all those things, because I think they're amazing. But I wondered if I could ask you about like your motivation, because I think when you experience a grief like that and you are so in it and you're feeling so depressed and you know you don't want to take care of yourself,
Mm.
what's the driver? What's the motivation? Because you've mentioned a couple of things like, oh, I want to make them proud of me, or oh, this just isn't good for me, or I'm depressed. What is it? What's
Mm.
the why that makes you say, right, there's got to be a change now?
Good question. I think, honestly, I don't want to feel those negative feelings. I don't want to experience those negative thoughts. I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to go back to feeling like they've just died. I don't want to go through that again. So therefore, I can sit with it and dwell on it and feel sorry for myself. And sometimes that's healthy for me to do as well. Sometimes I can think, poor me, I wish my mum was here, because that's just a normal part of the grieving process. But other times I think, well, why am I sitting here fed up? Why am I sitting here feeling sorry for myself when I can just look out the window? Oh, the sun's come out now. It's a beautiful day today. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a walk. And on this walk, the noise is going to quieten down, and I'm going to talk to my mum when I'm walking around. No one's around me. So, or even if they were, they'd be like, oh, there's some guy's walking, talking to himself. But I don't care. I'm over that now. I'm happy to go out and talk to my mum, and I'm happy to talk to Jasper, and I talk to my dad now as well. And I'm happy to do that. So my motivator is just, I guess it's myself. It's myself giving myself the kick up the bum that I need sometimes. But also, it's reaching out. It's reaching out to people that love me, reaching out to family, reaching out to friends, because so many people care for me, and I'm so grateful of them. It's tapping into gratitude. I journal every day. I write down my thoughts, write down what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for where I live. I'm grateful for my friends, my family. but sometimes it's being more specific and writing down a person's name or an event that happened that I'm grateful for. So sometimes, yeah, it's just myself. It's always yourself, like taking those first steps. It's got to be you that wants to take those steps, because you can't make anyone talk. You can't make anyone get help. All you can do as a friend, I guess, is just highlight the help available and just say, look, there's so much help available. If you don't feel comfortable talking to me or talking to your brother or your friend, have you heard of this company, Cruise Bereavement? I spoke to Cruise on the phone several times, and they helped me. It's a trained professional on the other end of the phone. And now I've spoke to Samaritans several times on the phone. And when my dad was poorly, I reached out to Macmillan as well to get professionals in that industry talking about cancer. And that's what they're there for. Whether they're a volunteer or whether they get paid, they're trained. They're a trained professional. So they're there to listen to whatever I've got to say. So whatever I've got to say, they're there to listen. And then sometimes they're equipped with signposting to say, oh, have you tried going here? Have you tried calling this number? Have you spoke to your GP? Have you reached out to this helpline? Because when I was in the thick of it, all them years ago, I felt like I was just alone. I thought there's no one else on this planet that has lost 2 family members in 6 months. There's no one else feeling the way I'm feeling. So what's the point in talking about it? Because they're not going to understand at all. But that is something that I've learned, and far worse things has happened to many people around the world. So once again, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm actually one of the lucky ones, and I'm very grateful for my life. I'm grateful to be alive and to be not drinking anymore, because that was just a huge negative for me, and I didn't realize that it was a huge negative. So yeah, it was me and my inner strength, really, that I didn't know that I had. I didn't know it was there. And it sometimes takes the likes of a family member or a loved one to say, you're doing really well, like well done, James. Getting through today is tough. And if you got up today, that's a win. If you got showered and brushed your teeth, that's another win. That's like 3 wins straight away. So if you sit on the sofa for the rest of the day, that's okay, because you're having a tough time and you need to look after your mental well-being. You need to look after yourselves. And that is, if someone's saying that to me, then I'm grateful to hear that. And in those moments, sometimes I still have those intrusive thoughts saying, why are you being lazy? Why are you laying on the sofa? Why are you feeling sorry for yourself? Get up, do something, make some food. And you've got to be in that frame of mind where you're open to the help, you're open to the support. You've got to want to get better yourself and reach out and that I guess that would be the main motivator for me, because out of all the other motivations that I have in my life, it's me that does it, no one else.
Do you think that, because obviously there's a change, you talk about 2 sort of parts of your life, I guess. There's the younger part, the immature part, and then this part of you that's had to grow up through grief almost. It's like grief is teaching you these things. What has grief changed your outlook? Is it grief that's making you see all this beauty and this gratitude, or do you think that it's a separate thing?
It definitely has a part to play. Definitely has a part to play. I think I used to look at the world with envious eyes. Mother's Day, prime example. I could not leave the house on Mother's Day. There's no way I could go out to a restaurant with loads of families, all there with their mums, all celebrating their mums, with flowers and balloons and presents and love. And I would look at that and think, why would I do that? Why would I put myself in that situation? Because the whole time I'm going to be missing my mum. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be thinking, why isn't my mum here? Why can't I be with my mum? But I think over time and my age as well, like again, growing up, I'm looking at it completely different. and I can do that now. And the Mother's Day that's just gone, me and my wife took my mother-in-law out, so my wife's mum, and we went out, and it was lovely. It was really nice. It's kind of, I guess I've been overthinking it all these years, and again, it depends on what person I am, what person I am in this actual moment, because I also respect the fact that when we arranged those plans and I communicated my boundaries with my wife and my mother-in-law, that yeah, let's go out for lunch, let's go and do it. But if it gets to a point where I've got to bail out, please accept that. You know, it might get too hard for me and I might just go for a walk or just go and get some air. And they were on board. They were like, oh, absolutely, whatever you need to do. Like, I know it's tough and we don't have to go out. And straight away I was like, no, let's go and do it and try it. And I was fine. But it's important to communicate what your boundaries are as well, when, you know, if something's going to get tough. And that's not always easy to do with family, because like going back to what I said about Christmas, I felt there was so much pressure at Christmas. We've got to meet up. We're going to this person's house on Boxing Day. We're going to go and do presents there on the 27th, and on the 28th we're going to go and sing Christmas carols and all that stuff. I just thought, no, I don't want to do that. Like, why would I want to do that stuff? There was so much pressure. But now I feel like, well, they're either going to accept it or they're not. So if I'm going to say, do you know what, Christmas, I'm going to escape, me, the wife, the dog, we're going on holiday, we're going down to Cornwall, we're going to be at the beach at Christmas, this is where we're going to be, okay? That's my choice. Whether they're disappointed or not, that's their choice to be disappointed in me. And I'm okay with that. Again, I'm okay with that. I'm just like, well, I'm sorry, but this is where I'm going to be. If you want to book a holiday at the same time in the same place, then go for it, and we can see each other on Christmas Day. But I'm happy to escape the world and have a holiday and grieve in my own way.
And I think, you know, I'm so glad you said that, because boundaries are so important. Like when you're grieving, there's so much pressure to respond to somebody in a certain way when you don't want to, or there's so much
Right.
pressure to be, I don't know, polite or kind, or whatever you're not feeling. And even in the midst of people asking perhaps intrusive questions that you don't want to answer, or
Mm.
making comments about, oh, you should be over it now, or surely, you have to find a way to respond. And I think the boundaries and saying exactly what you want and what you need is really good, but it is really hard. So how did you learn that?
Well, just education, just getting educated, through my job, through my colleagues, through being educated, talking about what exactly boundaries are, the importance of boundaries, everything you just said as well. Because some people would be like, I don't have any boundaries because I don't know what they are. But it's just saying, you know, saying how you feel. And if you don't feel like something's right, saying something and saying, you know, you shouldn't be saying that, or you shouldn't be doing that because that's really offensive. And can you stop saying it? Can you stop doing it, please? Or it can just be saying no. And that's a boundary in itself. Thanks for inviting me, but no, I'm not going to come. And for years, I thought, well, I've got to give an excuse for that. I can't just say, no, I'm not coming. What is my excuse to not come to this event? Well, actually, I can just be like, oh, thanks for inviting me. No, I'm not going to come. And that's it. And being okay with that and accepting that
Yeah.
and making peace with it as well. And it's not the easiest thing to do. It's actually very hard to do, because as human beings, we like to think of other people, and we have thought about how they might portray us, and we don't want anyone to think bad of us. And but we're all different. We're all different and unique. And if everyone can just respect everyone, then the world would be a much nicer place. I think if someone doesn't want to do something, then just respect it. You don't need to ask it. Do you want to come? Yes or no? No? Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Maybe next
And
time.
that's a rule, that's a rule for life, not just grieving. um,
Absolutely.
okay, one last thing then. I really appreciate time. Just tell us before we end, what advice can you give others? What do you think other people need to know about grief?
It's such a tough one. It really is. It's such a tough one. Like when I lost my dad just over 3 years ago, at a similar same sort of time, it was just at the tail end of the pandemic, and some friends I went to school with, two sisters I went to school with, and they lost their dad, and I just reached out and said, you know that I've been through losing a parent. What you're going through right now is really tough, really hard. If there's anything you need or anything you want to talk about, nothing's off boundaries with me. If you've got any questions, you can ask me. You won't upset me, because a lot of people think I'll upset him if I ask him, or whatever they may be thinking. And at that time, we bounced off each other. I was grieving as well, and we got talking, and we started a little a WhatsApp group chat, just the three of us. And on the days where we feel crap, we just share it. We talk about it, and it'll be like, right, I might say, I was just in the supermarket and a song came on, or something was on special, and that was the drink my dad used to drink, and I was stood in the aisle in Tesco's with tearing up, and I know that they'll understand it. And that's a comfort. That's a comforter for me to have that there. Because I might not necessarily, well, I would tell my wife, but I know my wife wouldn't understand it because, her parents are still alive. So she wouldn't necessarily get it as much. Whereas, having friends that have lost parents, then I can talk to them. So I don't know whether I don't know if I've actually got any advice. I guess you've just got to actually grieve and really grieve, and don't try to hide away. Don't make the mistakes I made by just pretending like I was okay. Don't try to think like you need to be there for other people. And if you've got people you feel like you have to be there to support them, there's only so much you can do. Make sure that you're looking after yourself at the same time, because at the end of the day, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't do that, and you need to look after yourself. And if you're experiencing being there for someone whilst grieving yourself, make sure that after being there for that person, you do something for you, something that you enjoy. Being around, I don't know, a pet, your kids or friends, or go for a run, or just do something for you. And that self-care is really important. But it's just a horrible club to be in. That grief club is just not nice. And I feel like when someone loses someone, and I feel like every time I know someone that loses someone, I feel like I need to be there for them. I need to put my arm around them and be like, yep, I've experienced similar. It's really horrible. I know there's no words I can say to support you. Just please know I'm here always. So if you need to come round to my house, you can. If you need to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can, and I'll listen to you. But that's kind of all I can do for you for now. And there's other nice things that can be done. When mum passed away, family members and friends would sometimes just bring some food round. They'd make a lasagna and bring it round to us, and it's like, wow, yeah, I actually forgot to eat, and the last thing on my mind is going shopping and coming home and cooking a meal. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and you take less care of yourself. So little things like that was great. So if anyone is grieving, or someone that might be grieving, then think about that, taking them some food and just giving them that space. And if you are grieving yourself, then just grieve, just feel those feelings, confront those feelings, cry, actually cry, let those tears out. And once you do, you'll feel, not necessarily you'll feel better, but you might feel a little bit more comfortable in your own skin, because I am more than happy to cry in front of people. I've got no problem showing that vulnerability. Put a Disney Pixar movie on, I know that I'm going to be crying, because they can touch those feelings, they can touch those feels, they'll get you right there, and you're like, oh man, it's really sad, but I'm happy to do that. I'm more than happy to, because that's how I feel. I'm not going to hide those tears. I'm not going to hold back those feelings. If tears are wanting to come out, I'll let them out. And I'll just feel it, and I'll experience it, and just try to ride out that initial period, because grief comes in several stages. You have the shock stage, you have the disbelief stage, you have the anger stage, you have the depression stage. You then eventually get to that acceptance, and it takes a while to get to the acceptance. It took me quite a while to get there, but now I can accept it. I still miss them all, and I never want anyone that I love to die. But they do. That's life. That's the circle of life, the cycle of life that we all experience. People that we love will die, and it's very, very sad because it's a shock to our systems. But when we're grieving, when we're crying, when we're missing them, that's all the love we've got. That's all that love that we have for them, and we feel like we can't no longer pass that love and share that love with them. So that's got to be a good thing, right? To be filled with that amount of love and to experience that love. So just remember you've got that love. The reason why you're so sad is because the amount of love that you've got and to share with that person, you now miss that person, and that's okay. It's a normal process that we all go through. It's just a difficult time. So remember just to be caring for yourself. Treat yourself with care. Treat yourself like you would a child. You know, treat the children with extra respect and extra care. So treat yourself like a child. You know, go to bed early, have a bath, have a shower, dim the lights, read a book, listen to some gentle, calming music before bedtime. Don't sit there scrolling on your phone. Don't sit there eating food or drinking beers. You know, treat yourself like you would a child. Be kind to yourself. That would be my number one bit of advice. Just be kind to yourself. Be gentle to yourself, and just be patient as well. Take your time, because it's something that you will live with forever. And like I said at the beginning earlier, you know, I don't want to forget them ever. So I would rather grieve them for the rest of my life and miss them for the rest of my life than forget them.
James, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to listen to you. You've got so much sound words of wisdom. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it so much. It's always nice to have these conversations, and to chatting with you today has been a pleasure. So thank you.